Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday, March 11th, and we are live today. We're live in two places actually today, in our Facebook group and on our YouTube channel as well. So wherever you're watching us, welcome, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us this afternoon. And we'll kind of give everyone a minute to sign on here. I see the numbers are popping up now. People are actually starting to come online, but we appreciate y'all's time on this beautiful Friday afternoon. And yeah, we're going to just go ahead and get started. I am Mitchell Saum. I'm the sales director at BDV Solutions. I deal with all of the new clients that are coming in, trying to educate them about how the process works and see if this program is the right fit for them. So I'm here today with my friend and colleague, Chris Richardson. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing well, Mitchell. How are you?
Good. And Chris and I haven't done one of these in a while, so I've been excited to get online and do one of these with Chris. Chris is the general counsel at BDV Solutions and the COO. And Chris has been at BDV for 3 years, 4
3 years,
years?
yep. 3 years, 3 years. Since 2019. Yep.
Cool. And the purpose of this video today, first of all, Chris is going to talk to us just to give us a little update on the EB3 program and kind of immigration in general, what's going on at the embassies, what's going on in Washington, D.C., and just kind of give us a little bit of a briefing on the current state of the EB3 Unskilled program and of immigration in general. And then we're going to follow that with a question and answer. So if you are on Facebook or on YouTube, you can comment on this live video and you can comment your questions, and we will add those questions up here to the broadcast. And kind of like this. Good to see you too, Shamim. Um, so type your comments in here and we'll be able to bring those up, and Chris and I will discuss and hopefully provide y'all some clarity and some answers. So while Chris is talking, think of your questions and type them in. Chris, if you want to go ahead and talk to us about what's going
Yeah,
on these
sure. And
days.
please be nice with those questions. Actually, you don't have to be nice. You can be a jerk. It's fine.
Yeah, one thing that I will say is if you're a BDV client, we're not going to answer your like specific question about your specific case. So try to keep your question somewhat generalized. If you are a BDV client and you have a specific question about your case, you can always sign into your account, chat with our team, and one of our team members will get back to you with that answer that you're looking for. Chris, let's go ahead. Chris, do you want to start off talking about kind of BDV within the past 3 or 4 months and kind of what's happened at BDV?
Sure. It's really exciting, Mitchell, that, we got acquired by this private equity company, Astara in New York, and they've really fueled a lot of our growth. Mitchell and I were laughing that back when him and I started, there was like 6 of us over at B, or even less when he started, but about 6 of us in the office back when I started, and we could do a lot of things. But now we've grown so much that it's interesting how there's like now 30 or 25 or almost 30 of us now. But it's really, really exciting to see this kind of growth. It really has set us apart from our competitors, just because we have a lot more brain power, a lot more financial power, and a lot more connections in Washington, D.C. than we ever have before. So for me, and I think for the rest of the team, it's just so exciting to have that ability, to have that kind of muscle, to try to help our clients kind of navigate this this immigration system that we're in. And so the last 3 or 4 months have been a time of real growth for BDV. But in doing that growth, Mitchell, I think it's important that we not lose sight of who we are. A lot of people sign up for BDV because of that personal touch, and they sign up for BDV because we're going to fight every day for our clients. And so while we've been acquired by this private equity firm and we have all these new people, I don't want us to ever lose sight of who we are, and that we fight for our clients and that we continue to try to help our clients the best we can. So a lot of growth on our part. We've actually grown out our government relations team. We've hired we've always had lobbyists, but now we partnered with the former director of USCIS, Leon Rodriguez, and he's going to be he talks with the actual USCIS director on a weekly basis. He talks to people within government on a weekly basis. And so we're going to have a direct ear to the USCIS director through Leon Rodriguez, who's the former director of USCIS, and I'll be interviewing him on Monday here on Facebook and our YouTube channel. And so we just have a lot more. We've always, been able to fight for our clients, but now we just have a lot more resources to fight for our clients. And I think that's more important now than ever, just because of the backlogs and everything that's going on with those.
Cool. Well, thanks for that update on BDV. It's definitely been quite the time of change here, but positive change. A lot more people, a lot more kind of hands on deck that are helping our clients. Obviously, as this business has grown, our client base has grown like exponentially. Yeah. And this was something that I always knew was going to happen a couple of years ago when we had 20, 30 clients, and then just green cards kind of slowly started trickling in. But now that we're at this point where we have clients getting green cards almost every day, each one of those people is going out to their friends, to their family members, telling them about, how they got their green card. And it's obviously, just a lot of people now. So we need more support here at BDV.
And I think for me, I don't want to lose sight. My personal goal, especially for the rest of this year, is as we get more people and I get more staff and we get more staff to help us, I really want to focus on how do we help the people who've been waiting the longest. I don't want people to go into this thinking, oh, everything's perfect. You just do it. You get your green card. It's so easy. This is a really hard process. You don't pay all this money and put up this much of attention and time into something that's easy, right? So I think a lot of clients have a lot of delays, both on the government side and our side, and there are a lot of things that on the lawyer side, and I think that people need to feel that, even though we're bigger, we're still responsive to them and still responsive to their needs. And I think we really need to focus on making sure that we can put as much attention as we can to helping, especially all of our clients, obviously. But we have clients that have been waiting a while, and they've been really waiting for the government to give them answers. And so I need to work and be even more creative. And now that we have these resources, I can do it. Be a lot more creative on how we fight on behalf of our clients. And the great thing about BDV is, we try everything for our clients. We'll try mandamus lawsuits. We'll try congressmen. We'll talk to Joe Biden, we'll talk to Kamala Harris, we'll talk to whoever we have to on behalf of our clients. And there's not a lot of organizations out there that'll do that. And I'll tell you, Mitchell, that I still to this day wake up every morning and I check the USCIS case status website for specific clients of ours, clients who've been with us the longest, and clients who I feel like I've known the longest. And they're the people that I worry about the most and I think about the most, because I think that what we're offering as a service is just so great, and what our clients are doing is just so great for this country and for all of us, that I really admire and respect them a lot, and I have such tremendous belief in all of them, all of our clients, but especially the long ones.
Definitely.
I think that we have to find a way to make sure that they're represented and helped.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people will be in our Facebook group and they'll see these success cases that we put up. Granted, some of those success cases are very long timelines. I've posted some of them, that are over 40 months in there. So long timelines for some of them, but a lot of them are really fast timelines. And they are those clients that, just slip right through the process, with no problems, or maybe with like one audit or one RFE or something like this. And so it's just important for people to realize that the service that we provide is tailored to your individual case, which we don't know how long the duration of that is going to be. No one's really going to be able to give you that answer. And so but we're going to continue to be here regardless of how long it takes.
Right.
And that's something that is, really unique, I think, about BDV. Even our policy, people always ask, it's like the number one question, do you offer refunds? And I always, explain our refund policy, where if you're rejected at any point in the process and it's not your fault, then, we will find a new sponsor again to start the process again for you. So many people have had to do that. They've had to opt for that option B, or even in some cases an option C. I've seen clients who've had to go through, 3 applications. Now those are incredibly rare. Incredibly rare. Right. But the point is that they exist. And the point that I'm trying to make to people that are watching this is that really anything can happen, and you want a team that's on your side, that's going to fight for you. Exactly what Chris is saying right now. Like he really cares and is focused most on these clients that have been waiting the longest, because they're in these kind of unfair situations, most of the time kind of caused by the government. And so we have to put in that extra effort, that extra step to like make it happen for them.
Right. And honestly, Mitchell, I'll be honest with you that I've called embassies, I've called people, I've called congressmen on cases. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work. But like I really feel in my heart for all the clients, but especially the long lasting ones. And we'll fight with you, we'll fight for you. Now it's funny because we've had like a lot of clients, and I look at some clients as like, I always think of clients as like family in a sense that like some of them are gonna be really mad, right? Like some days they're gonna send me an email being like, F you, Chris, F this, F that. I'm gonna come to Greenville to beat you up, which I wish they would try. But then like they get their green cards and it's like, oh, I always loved you, I always respected you, and it's just like, I have a bunch of these emails where you threaten to beat me up. In fact, I've had a couple clients, in fact, who they told me they asked for refunds. They twice asked for refunds, twice said no, got their green cards, and then I was like, oh, do you want your refund still?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things about our service as well, is that, and pardon my French here, but like, we're not here to blow smoke up people's asses. We are actually here to do work and like tell you what you don't want to hear many times, and be honest with you about your situation. And so I think that's something that has merit to it, because not every agency is necessarily going to treat their clients in that way. We're going to, kind of tell you exactly what's going on. This has kind of brought up some questions here that I'm seeing, and I definitely just want to address this one really quick. Is getting rejected on the first application a common thing? Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. It's not common.
Even like the employers who are considered in the public to be the most problematic, almost all their people get green cards. Now, sometimes those green cards come a little bit slower, sometimes they come a little bit faster, but getting rejected on the first application is not a common thing. The most common thing, especially now, post-Trump, is to get an I-140 approval instantly. Now, I know that people, the thing is about, there's these WhatsApp groups and these other groups out there, and then there's people who will hear like these stories about this one denial, and they'll make that denial into the denial of history, right? Like, oh my God, everyone's gotten denied. Not realizing that that's one denial, but then 100 people got approved as well. But, we don't publish every I-140 approval.
Yeah.
Maybe we should, but no.
That's the problem. That's the problem with the Facebook groups, is that, one person or two people might have whatever it might be, an RFE, annoyed, something, and then they go back into their WhatsApp group that's, not affiliated with BDV officially, and then they go and tell everyone, oh my God, my case got this annoyed, and then everyone in the WhatsApp group is like, oh my God, is my I-140 going to get revoked?
Yes,
and then and it just kind of causes this.
It's so funny because I know exactly when people chat on a WhatsApp group, because I will get I'll get 10 emails identical to each other asking the same question and from the same employer. And I'll be like, oh gosh, I wonder who said what on this WhatsApp group. And now I've gotten like 10 emails from people asking the identical question about something.
Yeah.
And but I get it though. But I get it.
Kind of the point of that though is like, don't go in the WhatsApp group for information about your case. Come to BDV, and we're here to tell you, what's going on, and be honest and upfront in the first place. So you don't have to go into these WhatsApp groups and,
Right.
try to scheme around the system.
But I get it though. I mean, if I were an applicant, I'd probably be the same way. I'd be pissed off that things were being delayed. I'd be pissed off at the government, and I'd be really pissed off if I had to wait, 40 months, but this person who just signed up yesterday and is already complaining got their green card in 8 months. Like I think
Exactly.
the immigration system is just really unfair.
Yeah,
It's not a
it
fair
is.
system. It really depends on whose desk your case lands on. In a lot of instances, USCIS has like this 9 million green card backlog that's probably going to be 12 million by the end of the year. Consular has a 600,000 case backlog. They have very few officers now, and they don't have like any plan to deal with it. I think a lot of people have this idea that people in government are smart and they have like these intricate plans, and I've been in government. These people are not rocket scientists, and their systems are not rocket science, right? Like, if you go to a USIS office desk, right, like it is just a pile of cases everywhere, right? I once helped a client in a country by calling the embassy and being like, "Hey, what are you gonna do about this case?" And the officer was like, "What case?" And then he looked.
I don't know if I lost Chris or if I lost myself here.
Oh, sorry.
Are you back?
Yep, I'm back. Think I disconnected?
Yep, there you are. All
Oh,
right.
there we go.
Welcome
Sorry.
back.
So yeah, I was saying that there's a bunch of people. I'll call an embassy and there'll be like someone's case is under their desk or something. They totally forgot this case even existed. Um, so yeah, I think there's a lot of chaos in government. And the great thing about BDV is we understand that chaos, and sometimes we can actually cut through and get answers on the chaos.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that provides kind of a little bit of an update on what's going on, with the government in terms of like the green card backlog. Obviously, the consulates are, it's tough. I mean, do you know anything going on like with specific consulates? Like, for example, in Nepal and Bangladesh are just the two that
Mm.
I'm thinking of. Do you know what's going on there exactly? Because I think a lot of people in this group are curious.
Yeah, it's because it's been so long, right? When I talk to people in government about Nepal and Bangladesh, and I have friends who work at the embassy there. Um, their thing, and it's so funny because I get these emails from people, and they'll be like, "Well, I have it on good authority, or I have a good source or contact," and I'm just like, "Oh, really? Do you have a really good source?" We went to the embassy. You and I actually went to the embassy in Bangladesh, and we went to the embassy in Nepal. We actually met with those officers.
Yeah,
Um, and what I've heard is that it's just not a priority for them.
right.
A lot of these posts are still undermanned due to COVID. A lot of these posts, it's just not a priority for their leadership. They say, you know what, we got Ukraine, we got Afghanistan, we got COVID, we have a backlog from our family-based cases, which are always going to be a priority over the employment-based cases, and we're just not going to do anything on it. But other posts, like Brazil, and the Latin American posts, well, some of the Latin American posts are trying to be more responsive and be faster and quicker. And that's actually funny because when I first started, our Latin American posts were probably the hardest posts, and that has gradually started turning. And now it's the Africa and Latin American posts seem to be moving faster and have a lot better organization, except for maybe Colombia and the Dominican Republic. But for the most part, we're really seeing a lot more approvals in Africa and in Latin America because they have a lot more officers now, and their leadership is much more willing and able, because it all comes down to post leadership and how much stuff they want to take. And unfortunately, the leadership of the posts in Bangladesh and Nepal, this is not a priority for them.
Yeah,
And it's our job to make it a priority.
got it. So again, this is kind of one of these things that we have going on in the background is, trying to communicate with the right people that can push these things forward on their agenda. But we are at the will of the U.S. government here. You can only do so much in that circumstance, So yeah, but cool. I think everyone appreciates hearing a little bit. A lot of people are asking about, well, what about Mexican embassy here? What about European embassies? I mean, I don't know if you have the updates on all of them here.
Mexico is right now not. I probably know the most officers in Mexico, and what they tell me is that they're so. I think that for you as a client, you think EB3 Unskilled. Oh my God, this is the most important thing in the world to me. But realize that as a visa officer or manager, they have millions of cases, right? Like millions. The vast majority are family-based cases, which means brothers, uncles, not uncles, brothers, siblings, parents, children. They have hundreds of thousands of those cases of U.S. citizens wanting their family members to come over to the United States. They have Americans overseas who are victims of whatever. They have Ukrainian refugees and Afghan refugees in Mexico and in Colombia and in other places. And these officers have never had to deal with that before. And then they have 40 or 50,000 employment-based EB1s and employment-based EB2s. And they have EB5 now, which is restarted, which is like the investor visa. And so we're only 10,000, right? There's only 10,000 EB3 unskilled. If you're a visa officer, it is very likely that you will go your entire life, your entire career, and never once have an EB3 unskilled visa, not once. So when I go to an officer and I'm like, hey, what are you going to do on this case? They're like, what is that? I don't even know what that is. I've never even seen that before. But I do know what this family-based case is. I do know what this spouse is writing me and their congressman and everything else. And so I think that for us, we're thinking, oh my God, like this is the most important thing. And it is the most important thing to our clients. But to the officer, it just isn't, right? Because they're just like, what do you want to do? You want to do what? Like, I don't have time for this. And so it's our job to get them to care about it. But I think that our clients have to have expectations about where they fit into the world of immigration, right? And not just not even like consular. You think about USCIS, there are like 12 million people who are waiting for their green cards, 12 million people waiting for their green cards. And you're one of them. Now, for some of them, we can get you to the top of that 12 million. But, it's hard for me to go to a congressman or go to a senator or go to these visa officers or USCIS officers and be like, hey, I need you to move my cases to the top of the list. We have to be creative about it. But, be aware that you're not the only one. And I get that a lot, like, oh my God, what's wrong with my case? It's like, there's nothing wrong with your case. It's the government. It really is the government.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
And it comes back to like setting your expectation in the beginning and understanding what you're signing up for in the beginning. Because I think a lot of people just hear from their friends, oh, you can get a green card through BDV through this program. Like, you got to check it out. I got mine in 18 months or whatever. And then the person's going in with this expectation, oh, well, he got his in 18 months. I'm going to get mine in 18 months. And like, that's just not right. That's just not the right way to even look at it.
One thing I also want to sort of cut you off, Mitchell. One thing I did want to say about these Facebook groups and even the WhatsApp groups is there are USCIS officers on our Facebook group, right? Like there are USCIS officers. I'm sure they're watching this video right now. Hi guys. I know there are consular officers on this WhatsApp group. I mean, on this Facebook group, right? And so if you're sitting there and talking about my specific issue and asking all these really detailed, intricate questions about your specific case, I would not do that on Facebook Lives or Facebook in general. Like, because the government, if you're trashing an employer, for example, you're like, oh, this employer must be fraudulent. And this USCIS officer is at home or reading our Facebook group and is like, oh, wonder what that means, So, I would tell people to be very, very careful what you post in public because it's a private group. But there's 40,000 people. How big is our group now, Mitchell?
Yeah, it's like almost 43,000.
Okay, you cannot tell me that out of that 43,000 that there aren't people at US. I know that there are people at USS and consular because they tell me, right? Like they tell me that they're on this group. And so I think that people need to be very aware that you know, if you go out there and blab about your employer or blab about how terrible they are or blab about how terrible the situation is and speak about your specific client and your name is on there, um, you know, just be careful. That's all I'll say. Just be careful.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's, yeah. I mean, the purpose of the groups is, you know, for people to go and communicate with each other and to be able to have a space where they can talk about their case and kind of learn about other people's cases and watch
Yeah.
these videos.
Yeah.
But once you start getting into like super granular details or like, again, it's like these circumstances where maybe one person got annoyed or an RFE and then they go and they, you know, start, or, you know, there are a ton of different examples that I've experienced during my time at BDV of just
Mm-hmm.
a client being upset about something and then going in the group complaining about it, or going in a WhatsApp group making other people scared about it. And I guess it's just the nature of
Yeah,
this,
it is. It is.
of immigration. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's nerve wracking, it's
Yeah.
stressful, like
Yeah.
it's expensive.
Yeah.
So it's hard to, you know, control yourself and control your
Nah, it's fine.
emotions when you have so much invested. But
Exactly
yeah.
right. It makes perfect sense. But just my 2 cents that, dude,
Yeah.
just so you know, anything you publish, you should assume that somebody's reading it who's got your case. You should just assume that, always. And that's the great thing about BDV is that we are not afraid of it. You know, like I think a lot of other companies that deal in this situation, or a lot of other EB3 Unskilled companies, would be terrified at the idea that USCIS is watching them or consulars watching them. They'd be terrified about that idea, but we're not, because we know that, because we have people from government who work for us. We have people in government that we help. We have people in government that, you know, trust us, and they see that someone's connected to BDV and they actually issue a visa because they're like, oh, I know those guys aren't shady. Those guys are actually going to make sure that they're good people, who are in the situation. And so that's the great thing about BDV, is that we're very, very respected in government, and that, you know, the people that know about us in government and talk to us about stuff in government really look at us as the premier immigration consulting firm, not just in EB3 Unskilled, but in general in the country.
Yeah. And, you know, that rapport had to be built over time. Like
Yeah.
when I started at BDV, we didn't have anything like that. But we
Mhm.
also didn't have, you know, the same number of applicants that were applying,
Right.
the same number of employers involved, and kind of all these different, you know, things going on. So
Right. Right.
it's been an interesting journey, and seeing BDV where it is now, it's crazy to think kind of what we started from.
Yeah.
And look, at the end of the day, it's just, this is the reason why you choose BDV, because we're going to be there. You know, we're going to be there to help you in all of these types of
Right.
hard situations.
Right.
Um, let's go ahead and just run through some of these questions. Um, I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but there's definitely some good ones that I'd
Mhm.
like to talk about. So I've read a number of agencies that deal with EB3 Unskilled program have been flagged by the U.S. consulate as visa for sale schemes. What does
Mhm.
BDV do differently to remain in good standing?
Yeah, they are. That's true. Um, w-
We'll just keep it up here.
Yeah, I hope that that's not, I hope it's not a question from one of our competitors. I was like, yeah, how do you guys do it? I think that establishing a rapport early on in the process is important. Explaining to consular and to USCIS exactly what we do and how we do it is important. And distinguishing ourselves from the bad actors is also very important. I think that we work on doing all three. I think that we talk a lot to people in government and explain who we are. And I think that, you know, before BDV really, you know, any agencies that dealt with EB3 Unskilled were kind of considered shitty and scammy, and within consular, right? Because I mean,
Definitely.
you know, in 2016, 2015, they basically stopped issuance of all EB3 Unskilled, because of this fear of these, you know, these other people. And don't get me wrong, a lot of them were schemy. They were
Well,
selling.
yeah, I think there were a lot of bad actors at the
Yeah,
time. Like even like towards the beginning when I first started at BDV, that honestly BDV kind of phased that whole thing out
right,
by coming
right,
online and making this more legitimate. But prior to BDV doing this, and in fact, we've seen other competitors that have come online and created their own Facebook groups and kind of copied what we've done here. But prior to BDV, there was a ton of bad actors.
Yeah.
There were people that were selling this service that was, a similar service to what we provide, but really they were just agents in other countries that were finding people and kind of selling this service to them. And they were charging $50,000, $100,000, absurd amounts of money to do this program. Obviously, it diminished the integrity of the entire program to the government. It sucks, honestly, thinking about it, because these greedy people took advantage of this system. And now we see embassies like Vietnam and South Korea that are still suffering from it, and people that signed up for a service where they really thought that they were going to be able to get through and have not been able to. So it's really a shame.
Right. And it's been our job at BDV to try to change the culture of EB3 Unskilled, change how it's viewed, and really change the dynamic of it. Because when I first started, I think most people looked at it and were like, oh my God, like EB3 Unskilled, what are you doing? But I think that we've really cleaned it up. We've made it and put it on the right path. But I think that there's still a lot of just negative residue from that old bad era that we're working successfully to clean up.
And something interesting here as well that I don't think a lot of people know, but Chris actually is connected with BDV in the first place, because Chris used to be an immigration attorney, and BDV hired Chris to help us with some of these troubled cases. So Chris kind of had his foot in the door of the EB3 Unskilled program even before he was at BDV, on the more on the legal side of it. But so I mean, that's kind of, you were involved in all this.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's go to the next one. This is just a quick question here. How long are labor certifications taking? Right now, they're taking around 6 months to 12 months. 6 months for an approval. If you get an audit, usually it tacks on about an additional 6 months. So you're looking at 6 to 12 months right now for the labor certification. It's been that for a while. It's been around 5 to 11, 6 to 12 months. So it's just, it's a little bit longer than, years past, but I think it's not terrible, but it's definitely a bulk of the process,
Right. We've been trying to get connections with DOL, and we have a couple of connections with DOL, but the problem with DOL is that those guys are very insular and isolated, and they're union people too. And so for them, they think that not only for them, but the way the law is, they follow the letter of the law. The law is that you have to protect the American worker from these foreign nationals. And so for them, a 6-12 month wait isn't, they're like, whatever, like, you're in America comes first, Americans come first, and you foreign nationals just have to suck it up and wait. That is the message I get whenever I talk to anyone at DOL. It's just like, well, what are we supposed to do with this? Like, these people have no rights, these people. And so, in the same way that we've worked to educate USCIS, in the same way we've worked to educate consular, we're going to have to start doing that with DOL as well. And again, I think that everyone has this idea that the government really, really cares about them and their issue. The government does not care about you or your issue, right? Like, they care, but they don't care as much as you do. And even with DOL, when I go to DOL, or I talk to someone at DOL, the only thing DOL cares about is wage and hour, abuses of American workers, and things that deal with America's workers. America has millions, hundreds of millions of workers, right? Or 100 million workers, right? You're only like 20, 30, 40, 50, 10,000 of us, right? So 10,000 foreigners versus 100 million workers. What do you think is more important to DOL? And DOL has to manage, remember, wage and hour for all Americans. My wages, Mitchell's wage, Britt's wage, DOL does all of that, right? And so to the extent that, USCIS has like 9 million or 10 million backlog, and we have to get our small subset cared for, DOL has 100 million workers, and we're trying to get them to care about our issue. And so that is to say that DOL is going to be a lot harder to get them to care than to get a USCIS or a consular to care.
Totally.
Because the same guy who's looking at the labor cert is also potentially looking at wage and hour issues, and is a former union worker and is probably unionized. And his mindset or her mindset is, how do I protect the American worker?
Yeah,
And yeah, and so I think getting them to think differently can be a challenge.
definitely. I mean, that's their job, is to protect the American worker. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um, well, cool. Just a couple other things here. We can just go through these quickly. This
Hmm.
guy says, is it easier or faster for Canadians? The reality to this question is that your country of birth, as long as you're not from India or China,
Hmm.
it's your country of birth is not going to affect your process or whether it's easier or faster. What might affect it is where you're located if you're outside the
Hmm.
United States, because you're going to be processing at a different embassy than someone else from a different country or someone else that's living in a different country.
Hmm.
And then, do we do anything other than EB3? Right now, we only do the EB3 Unskilled program. We have some other things I think that we're potentially looking into, but
Okay.
right now we are just solely focused on EB3 Unskilled. It's the only thing
Right.
we do.
Right.
This person created a new account, but no one replied. Please give us some time whenever you create an account. We're not necessarily, first of all, we get a lot of messages. Our sales team and our global mobility team and our client services team, we all get a lot of messages all throughout the day. So if you send us a message on there, just please be patient. We will try to get back to you as soon as we can, and we will get back to you. It just might take a little bit of time. So let's see here. This is an important one. Do BDV clients have a free or paid consultation with Argo? Chris, do you want to talk about
Um,
that? It's free. Well,
it's
it's
free.
included.
It's
It's
included
included.
now. It's
Yeah.
included now. But I do think we have older applicants that it might not be included. But I think
Yep.
that starting later, I think that everyone's going to be. If it depends on your contract, right? Like when you signed your contract.
Yeah. I
Um,
think it's pretty much everyone from
everyone
like
at this point, though.
somewhere at the end of 2020. So I think those
Right.
people are even phasing out. So if you're a
Yeah.
new client of BDV,
Yeah.
An Argo Visa consultation is included in the
Right.
cost that you pay. And
Right.
Chris, do you just want to briefly tell them what Argo does and what role they serve?
Sure. So Argo is a company of former visa officers. They worked at embassies and consulates all over the world, and they basically will give you a 30-minute, and they're also USCIS officers as well. They'll give you a 30-minute prep interview. I think it's about 25 now, and help you kind of understand the kind of questions you're going to get and help prepare you for your visa interview.
Got it. So if you're a BDV client and nowadays we've had a lot of BDV clients that aren't even getting interviews, especially obviously the adjustment of status
Adjustment. Yeah,
side
yeah, yeah.
of that. So a lot of people, don't even necessarily need it at this point, but it's important to be prepared
Yeah.
in any case scenario, because there are clients also that are getting interviews.
Right.
So you want to be prepared.
Right.
BDV wants you to be prepared. So that's why Argo is included
Yeah.
in our fees.
And I get
So
it. Like
every client.
some people think that they know everything and they're like, oh, it's fine. I'll just go in there and tell them what I know and it's okay. But that's not the way the consular brain works. I was a consular officer. I did hundreds of thousands of interviews. All of us have done hundreds of thousands of interviews, and the consular brain is very, very different than everybody else's brain. Simply just going in there and telling everything you might not be saying it right. You might be saying things in a correct way, and the officer is thinking like, oh my god, this person paid for the labor cert or whatever. And so it's really important that you talk to Argo officers, because we're going to know exactly what that officer is going to think before their interview. And yeah, you might get an officer who's like super, super easy, never had EB3 unskilled, just says, okay, I'll just give you the green card or the visa. But you might have an officer who's like from the bad old days of Korea and Vietnam, and that's all they know about EB3 Unskilled was just these old shady places. And they might say, "Oh well, I'm going to really grill you." And so it's important that people be prepared for those interviews. Either way they may go.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, let's see here. So we're getting some general questions here in terms of like the costs and how the process works. If you're asking these questions, you need to create an account on our website. the onboarding webinar is going to explain all of these details to you. And you can also chat with our sales team and we can answer questions for you. So if you're wondering about the costs or how the process works, or you're new to this, sign up for an account on our website. It is totally free to create an account. You don't pay any money until you actually become a client of ours. So we will talk to you about it. We will try to consult you about your, specific case, see if you're eligible for it. So yeah, let's see here. So let's see. Trying to find some good ones in here.
No worries.
So I'm going to pull this one up because this maybe can give a little bit of insight into an adjustment of status client and kind of what's going on with them. But obviously with adjustment of status, you have to be maintaining whatever underlying visa status you're on until you get to the I-485, I-140 stage of the process. Right. So this person is saying his labor cert is still processing almost 6 months, but he's about to finish college in 4 months. And so he's asking what to do. And if you're in this person's situation, you need to know what to do when you first sign up for this, because you need to be prepared for what's next. And if you have a pending labor certification, you could potentially get an audit at this point, which would tack on an additional 6 months of processing time to your labor certification. And then your 4 months of college is not going to be enough. So it's always important for adjustment of status clients, particularly, to have a backup plan. To, a lot of people will extend their status. A lot of people, once they graduate, they'll file for OPT. Some people have a STEM OPT. Other people will finish their OPT and still need more status. So they'll find another college and they'll enroll in another program and they'll get a new I-20. But it's important for adjustment of status people, especially those on your student visa, which is the bulk majority of adjustment of status clients for us, just to have a backup plan, because you don't want to get yourself into a bad situation here.
Right. Now, yeah, force comes, I mean, there are ways around. Yeah, I'm not going to get into it. Mitchell's just right.
Yeah, I mean, you want to make it easy for yourself, and you don't want to put yourself in these situations where like you're adding stress on top of the stress that you already have. So this is a great question that I'm excited to talk a little bit about. But with the ongoing economic situation, rapidly rising inflation rates, do you think this will affect the job market and possibly have an impact on sponsors' decisions to hire foreign workers under EB-3?
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's a valid question.
Yep. I think absolutely. But I think that it's more likely that they're going to want to hire more of them, not because the pays has to be different. You have to pay American workers the same as the foreign national. I think it's more likely, though, because they're just less workers. There's still less workers. With inflation, presumably you would think that wages would go up, and wages have gone up, but they're just Americans who just aren't. They're just not going. A lot of them aren't going back to work. I think COVID changed a lot of people's lives as American citizens, and they're just not going to do it. I think more likely is that rising inflation and the job market and the labor crisis is more likely to push Congress to do more to help businesses. I've heard a lot more talk on Capitol Hill from people who were previously pretty anti-immigrant, who are now looking and thinking of ways to help immigration. So
they must be reading all your articles.
Op-eds, that's right. Or at least I send it to them. And so I think that is more likely to happen, is that Congress is going to probably try to pass some bills to increase. And in fact, Congress just passed a bill to deal with the backlogs. I think they gave USCIS an additional several $1 billion. And we're going to be talking to USCIS soon about how they're going to manage and handle all that extra money. So I think that's more likely, that they're actually going to, and I think as employers struggle more to find workers, they're just going to spend more time wanting to just do this process, because that's the biggest thing for employers, is just that Employers don't want to give their tax information. Employers don't want to, they just don't want to go through this rigmarole of, because it takes a long time for them too to get workers.
Yeah.
So for a lot of them, they're like, I don't want to deal with this. But given the inflation and given the labor market, a lot of them are like, well, maybe I should actually go through this.
Yeah, definitely. And, you kind of have one perspective here. Mine is a little bit different than yours, to be honest. I think that, like, if inflation keeps going up and we have a big, not to be a doomsday prepper here or anything, but if we have a big, market crash or something like second Great Depression, people are gonna be working at McDonald's, because if I'm not working at BDV, where am I gonna go to work? I'm an American and I need a job too, So I think
Mitchell,
maybe in these doomsday
Mitchell,
scenarios,
stay off them blogs, stay off that
look, let's be
crypto.
honest.
Get off of it, Mitchell. Get off of it. You're
In
scaring
these
our clients.
doomsday
You're scaring me.
scenarios, maybe the
Scare me,
EB3 program
Mitchell.
won't exist anymore, but that's probably not going to happen. We've seen the government previously, even in times of economic distress, we see the U.S. government, coming in, stepping in, bailing banks out, whatever it takes to maintain our economy. And I think that will continue.
So we had like COVID and we had Donald Trump, and they still gave visas, and they still had it. If EB3 Unskilled could survive Donald Trump and COVID, when literally like 25 or 10%, 11% of the American population was laid off for work, and still employers were coming to us, we will survive this horrible scenario that you're talking about, a second Great Depression.
I hope so, but you never know.
And even the Great Recession,
I would like to point out, though, Great Depression happened in 1929, which was less than 100 years ago. So you never know what can happen. But let's move on to another doomsday topic here, which is the war. And I think that this is just a general question because I have had several people in sales has had several people from Russia that are now wanting to leave Russia.
Yeah.
Which, sorry, Russians, but I don't blame you if you want to leave. What's the deal with that? Do you know?
They can apply, but they would have to interview at a different country, right? So they'd have to like interview basically in Poland or Frankfurt or someplace else. That's the official story. I think the unofficial and real story is that it's just going to be incredibly difficult for a Russian to get out. But the thing is, if you start now, who knows what the world's going to look like in a year or 2 years, right? Like,
what about our current Russian clients that are in Russia?
Yeah, their cases are going to have to be transferred to a different post, like a Poland. I think Warsaw is technically the place where they're supposed to interview. And obviously, Warsaw right now in Poland is inundated with lots of different cases. And so the Ukrainians are going to go to Frankfurt and Poland, but all the Russians are supposed to go to Poland. But a lot of those cases are going to get extra security scrutiny as well, just because of this whole environment that we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. If LC is being audited, when will I know about it? BDV will notify the client. I think it's, we pretty much notify you immediately once your labor certification has been audited. So that is something that, we keep our clients educated in their case at every stage of the process. So whatever's going on. Well, yeah, especially during that labor certification stage where like you're kind of running blind because the employer is the only one that's really getting any updates from the Department of Labor. So you as the client really rely on BDV to keep you updated, which we do. So for an adjustment status case submission, can you choose the processing center or does it get assigned automatically per region?
It's usually based on where your employer is, but these days they'll tell you, oh, we're going to move you to TSC because it's faster. Or we're going to move you to NBC because it's faster. Yeah, you don't get to pick. USCIS picks for you. And unfortunately, it's usually based on where your employer is. But these days they've been moving it around. I've seen a lot of cases lately where they'll say that, well, TSC is full. We're going to move it to NBC, which is I don't want to like jinx it on that. I'm not going to say anything about TSC, but I've seen a lot of that lately. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. So it's kind of like musical chairs a little bit here.
Yeah.
Lately, it seems like. Okay. Well, this is, I mean, with regards to wages, can anything be done to help us get better wages? For example, employers that want to pay $10 an hour, I don't think it's a good enough wage to start. Well, we have a lot of different employers to select from, and there's a lot of employers with higher wages. I just announced an employer 2 days ago. It was a Chick-fil-A franchise in Greenville, South Carolina. Here, Greenville, comparatively lower cost of living here in South Carolina than a lot of other places. And $15 an hour starting wage at a fast food restaurant is pretty good pay. So yeah, we have a lot of options, a lot of different employers. Honestly, since my time at BDV, we used to be doing like $8 an hour jobs, and now we have like upwards of $20 an hour jobs. So we've definitely done a lot of work in finding employers that, first of all, are in more diverse locations, but secondly, ones that pay better as well. So let's see here. This is what happens if the employer goes bankrupt or if he fires me from the job without it being my fault? Do I lose my green card?
No. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Well, I just want to start off and then I'll let you go here. But BDV is not working with employers that are going to go bankrupt. So one of the things that we do, part of the service that we provide, is we help you find an employer. And so what we do is we vet employers, and we only work with employers that we feel confident in, and confident in the employer themselves and confident in them actually having the ability to successfully go through the process. Businesses are people at the end of the day. So BDV, we're people too. We are, dealing directly with other people in their businesses. And so, we take the time to do the due diligence to make sure that we're working with employers that aren't going to go bankrupt. Chris, do you want to talk about kind of the second
Yeah.
question
So
here?
let's say it does happen. Nothing's perfect. If it were to happen, as long as your case has been pending for more than 6 months, you can do what's called an I-45 Supplement J, which is transfer to another employer who's similarly situated to that prior employer, right? And so we have seen situations where people, they lose their job, or for whatever reason, it doesn't work out, and we were able to transfer them to another employer. So there are ways to do that, both in consular and with USCIS.
Got it. This is a relatively important question. And for consular, what is the education requirement and English proficiency requirement? There are no requirements. There is no education nor English proficiency requirement, which means that anyone can apply for this pretty much. It doesn't matter what your education is. You could have no education and you could still apply for this. That is kind of the beauty of the EB3 Unskilled program, is that you don't have to have any qualifications for it. You just have to be willing to do it, to do the job. In terms of English proficiency, it's important. BDV makes sure that our clients understand that when they're going and working for their employer, you need to be able to speak English. It doesn't need to be perfect. You don't have to take a TOEFL exam for us, but you need to be able to communicate in English because you're going to be working for a U.S. company. So yeah. So let's see. This is interesting. What do you think about this, Chris?
Do you think oh man. Yes. Yes, that's all I'll say. Just yes. I do think that the results of who wins the election will obviously affect BDV and affect all immigration. I think that, again, we already went through the last administration. We'll do it again if we have to. But obviously, if someone were to come back into the White House, the green card issuances and consular visa issuances might not be as strong. But the great thing for us is that we have connections on both sides of the aisle. I do think that there's a changing perception, even among those who were previously anti-immigrant, to wanting to work and help quote unquote legal immigrants. I do think that perception is changing. So irrespective of what happens in the 2024 election, I think that you're likely to see BDV and EB3 Unskilled continue.
Do you
Other
feel
visa.
as though
Mhm.
we haven't had immigration reform since 1990? Do you feel as though this turning sentiment might lead to some real change?
No. And well, how about this? I think that it's possible that there might be separate bills. I think that, Congress might say, look, let's just help. So, Biden, when I think everybody knows I was on the Biden campaign. I helped write his immigration plan. And when I was on the campaign, the one thing that we wanted to do was increase EB3 unskilled from 10,000 to 40,000, right? That's still something that's being talked about in Congress. So you might see a bill that increases EB3 unskilled to 40,000. You might see a bill that exempts dependents. You might see a bill that would recapture all the old visa numbers from the past. I can see that kind of bill being passed on a bipartisan basis between now and even the election. But any kind of comprehensive immigration reform is just going to be really, really hard because there's a lot of passion, a lot of issues, a lot of polarization, and a lot of folks who have really negative views. I mean, it's funny because the thing is, there are things that are so popular among both Democrats and Republicans, things that are really, really popular, like 70, 80% of them all support them. But both parties are being held hostage to the 20% of people who just want that one thing, right? And so the Democrats are like, well, yeah, we want to help the people with employment base, we want to help them all, but we won't do anything unless you free everybody in ICE detention and give all the undocumented workers of the history of the world visas and green cards and citizenship, right? And so that 20 or 10% are like no compromise unless you help everybody. And then on the other side, you have 20% of Republicans or whatever who are like, unless you build a giant moat and a wall and you put alligators and crocodiles and snakes and shoot these immigrants, we don't want any kind of immigration reform either. And so it's the funny thing is when I go on Capitol Hill and I talk to these congressmen and these senators and I talk to people in Washington, they all agree on this stuff. Of course, they all want to help EB3 Unskilled. They all want to increase it. They think it's ridiculous it's only 10,000. They think it's ridiculous how slow DOL is. They all know it. But they're like, well, but if I say it, then that 20% that's really batshit crazy, they're going to come after me. And so it's better that we do nothing
Right.
than rile up that 20%. And that's a failure of us as
This,
Americans to
folks,
put up
is
with
the
that stuff.
problem with
Yeah,
politics in the United
exactly.
States. It's just
Exactly.
totally
This is a
just
shit show.
screwed up.
Yeah.
It's terrible, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know
And
that
then,
other countries have their own political
yeah.
turmoils, but we
Yeah.
do here as well. And
Yeah. And
I
we're all
hope in
kind of
my
beholden.
lifetime I can see some real progress because I don't feel like a lot happens,
Yeah. And
because of what you're explaining.
the sad thing is, I think most Americans, you can get behind, there's like a bill out there, Mitchell. You can get behind a bill that helps everybody. There's a bill out there that could garner enough support from everybody. It's just that everybody in the country is just so beholden to this 20 or 30% of just batshit crazy people who are just yelling and screaming about things that aren't practical. And I wish
Yeah.
we could just move all that 20% to some other country or move them to a different planet and then they can fight it all out and let the normal people in the country get shit done.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. It's a good point. We're coming up to an hour here, so I'm just going to run through and see if there's
Yep.
any other good ones here. One here is how many clients do we have? We have thousands of clients that are
Right.
going through the process. Don't know exactly the exact number right now off the top of
Yeah.
my head, but has the U.S. ever hit the 10,000 quota?
I don't think so, no. And so it's really stupid. Like the whole visa retrogression thing is so stupid, right? So since but you know what, I should probably shut up because I know that there are State Department people probably watching this, but you know what? You guys know it's stupid too. So the way this works is that the State Department looks at the month and says, okay, how many visa applications are we getting in? And they do this math estimate thing that they don't tell us how they do it. And they basically say, oh shit, we're going to hit 10,000. Let's just freeze it. Instead of actually hitting 10,000 or coming anything close to hitting 10,000, they'll just say, well, it looks like we're going to we're going to hit it. So we're not going to issue any more visas. And so they'll implement visa retrogression to stop it, right?
I don't understand that at all.
That's just stupid, right? Like I think that whole thing is just stupid. And I'm just shocked that we do it that way, right? And so I think that I mean, like last year we hit like 4,000 or 5,000, 4,000. In the middle of a labor crisis, we don't even hit the numbers we need to. This year we probably won't even come close to hitting 10,000.
Yeah,
and it's just stupid and then if we ever came close to it, they would put in a visa retrogression instantaneously and keep it in there, even if it isn't real. And so, yeah, the whole thing is just such a stupid thing. We should have 10,000 every year, honestly.
One thing that this makes me think of is I have so many people that come to me and they say, "Oh, well, I joined your Facebook group 2 years ago, and now I want to sign up," or "I'm signing up. I'm a client of yours now, but my friends and family are waiting for me to get my green card approved so I can kind of be the proof of concept here to them for them to go start their process." And I advise everyone to not have that mindset when it comes to this, because the way that I see this going in the future is this program getting a lot more competitive. I actually just got off the phone with this guy today and I was talking about it. And if the 10,000 limit remains, I mean, the program's going to get a lot more competitive. It's just, while EB3 Unskilled is not mainstream in terms of like getting a green card, like it's becoming more and more so mainstream. Like we have 43,000 people in our Facebook group. There's a lot of people talking about this now, and it's a lot more people than last year, and it's a lot more people than the year before that and the year before that. So what's it going to be like in 2 years from now, 3 years from now? I mean, you take a risk by not starting the process now. You take a risk on what is the future going to be like, and what's going to happen with this program here. Hopefully they increase the numbers, but if they don't, and people continue to want to immigrate to the United States, which people always have and probably always will, it's going to boil up into a situation where, people are fighting each other for these job opportunities. So.
And the sad reality is right now we're blessed by the fact that, not blessed, but the fact that we had COVID, we have all this incompetence in bureaucracy and government that's actually slowed down visa processing. That's what's kept us from probably getting visa retrogression. And also because, the numbers from family-based, if they're not used, they roll into employment-based cases, right? And so that is what's been propping up and keeping us from getting visa retrogression. And it'll probably save us for this year and probably next year. But 2024, 2025, imagine it's 2025 and 2026, Donald Trump Jr. is in the White House and we hit that 10,000 quota, and then we're, I mean, I think that's a whole different world that we're going to be in, immigration wise. And so I know the world we live in right now, is, it's kind of slow, but it's still pretty good. But I have no idea and it's so funny, Mitchell. I think for those of us who watched us do these videos year in and year out, I think we did a video like this very similar in 2019 or 2020. We had this very same conversation, and I was like, get in now, do it now. And back then, the wait times and people weren't getting green cards at all. And it was like, well, that sounds crazy, Chris. And then guess what? The people who got in at that time when we had this conversation, they're the ones that got the green cards rapidly because the government
and they got like labor certs in like 3 months.
Right. Yeah, right. So it's like you can't base your decisions based on like
the present.
You have to think about, okay, so this might be the way it is now, but I have no idea what the future. They might be handing out green cards at USCIS in the future for all we know. So get in on it now.
Maybe BDV won't even be here. But the point is like that in 2026, Trump could be president again or whatever, and the 10,000 quota could be hit. You're going to want a team like BDV that's on your side, because again, going back to one of my original points is you're not going to know the duration of your processing time. So, I mean, it's 2022 now. I've seen clients do this process and it's taken them over 3 years. So what's life going to be like in 2025, for the people that it does end up taking 3 years for now, so it's just like, it's a lot to think about, definitely. But again, that's why you have a team that's going to be on your side regardless of what's going on. All right. I've gotten a lot more questions. I don't think we have time for all of these right now, but I will try to go back afterwards and answer some of these individually. I will pull this one up really quick. Just Russians, AOS. If you're Russian and you're already here on an F1 visa, you don't run into those problems, the same problems, right?
Right. That's right. Yeah. The AOS cases aren't going to have those same problems as the consular ones. That's true.
Got it. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of other questions in here. Sorry we didn't have time for all of them, but one thing that I do want to say here is create an account on the BDV website if you don't already have an account. It's really easy. Just go to this link right here, yao.bdvsolutions.com/register, and you create an account in there. You can chat with me and Sarah and Gilvandro, the sales team at BDV Solutions, and we can schedule a phone call with you, talk to you about this process, try to make you feel more comfortable, clarify any doubts that you might have. We're here to give you a tailored consultation to see if this is the right program for you, pretty much. So don't hesitate to sign up if you haven't already. Someone has been asking, well, how do I see the jobs? Where do I see the jobs? How do I find the vacancies? So you create an account on our website, create an account, go through the onboarding application, and we will help you. If you're just sitting there and you don't know what to do, our sales team will help you get to the point where you can view all the vacancies and you can select a job and you can sign a contract with BDV and make your payment and become a client. So yeah, I hope that you do that. I hope that we have the opportunity to talk to you and learn a little bit more about you and see if this is the right fit for you. But to be honest, it's the right fit for a lot of people because pretty much everyone qualifies for it. But we do want to check your background, make sure that you are eligible to receive a green card in the first place. So sign up on our account on our website, and we will review your application for you. Yeah, Chris, you got any parting words?
Nope, that's it.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for being here. Chris is going to be back online here and on our YouTube channel on Monday with Leon Rodriguez, who is the former director of USCIS. He's kind of a big deal, so I would definitely recommend you to come on. The video will be available to watch even after the fact, but definitely come on live because it's going to be another question and answer kind of format like this, where Chris and Leon are going to be talking and you're going to be able to ask questions, and hopefully this can give you another perspective, kind of from a governmental perspective of this program and immigration in general. So what time is it again, Chris?
3:00.
Okay, so it's Monday, March 14th at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And so hopefully all of y'all can attend that. But yeah, we look forward to seeing y'all here again on Monday. And we appreciate y'all participating and being here and asking questions. Sorry we didn't get to all the questions, but we will definitely make an effort to go back and try to respond to these.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.